375 million years ago, late Devonian period. Tiktaalik rosier, a lobe-finned fish complete with legs and a vertebrae, bravely takes its first step out of the water and onto the unknown stretch of hard earth known as land. No one knows what will come from this experiment, nor the consequences that will follow. Fast forward a bit, it's May of 1874 in Boston, Massachusetts. Humankind has evolved to become the dominant species on the planet, advancing the planet's progression into the modern era. Harvard University, in a brief bout of insanity, agrees to play a soccer rugby style of game dubbed the Boston Game against McGill University of Montreal. Harvard likes McGill's rules so much that they decide to keep playing by them, introducing them in their first intercollegiate game against Yale. Yale's players are captivated, chief among them an undergraduate medical student named Walter Chauncey Camp. Little further, it's 1920. The American Football Association is founded in Canton, Ohio. The pigskin is professional now. 1958, Yankee Stadium, New York. The Baltimore Colts and New York Giants are meeting to determine the NFL league champion, and the unthinkable happens. The game is tied after 60 minutes of regulation play, leading to the sport's first sudden overtime game. The Colts would win the game 23-17, and the game would go on to become what would be known as the greatest game ever played, capturing audiences on a national level. 1962, also New York. Bill Winkenbach, part owner of the Oakland Raiders, sits down with a group of buddies in a hotel room and helps create the Greater Oakland Professional Pigskin Prognosticators League. The concept is simple. League members draft players from the NFL and AFL leagues to their team, and based on their performances in actual games, members would accrue points and compete against one another for bragging rights. 2020, Boston, Massachusetts. Fantasy football is the most popular virtual simulation on the planet, with millions of participants worldwide. Samuel DeCoste sits down, opens his laptop, and decides to join the trend. What will follow will be the most ruthless, cutthroat, and diabolical series of events witnessed in all of human history. This is a history of the Witching Hour Fantasy Football League. The fledgling PPR League is created, and with its inception come 8 eager members: Jackson Stuckey, Cameron Manning, Leon Wenhow, Toby Lichtenwalter, Doran McCormick, Andrew Carter, Ben Spaeth, and Sam DeCoste. No money or betting is involved. For now, the 8 participants are happy to own simple bragging rights over their colleagues.
After freshman year, I had an epiphany that I have all these friends who we watch football with, and, well, we need to start putting our money where our mouth is. We need to start actually putting this league together. So I made a group chat. I said, fantasy football, anyone? And we had a league of 8. Now it's a league of 10, and it is the most beautiful experience one can have.
Sunday, April 26th, 2020. At 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the Witching Hour Snake Draft begins, with Bill O'Brien's butt chin taking Christian McCaffrey with the first overall pick. The draft concludes, and the league is blessed with relative parity and healthy competition. The weeks trickle by, and competition is relatively stiff. It isn't until week 6 that tragedy strikes. October 19th, 2020. Week 6 concludes. Bill O'Brien's butt chin defeats Team Manning by a lopsided score of 159.22 to 128.74. Andrew Carter decides the verbal ridicule isn't enough. He wants to create a piece of media that reminds Cameron Manning of this defeat forever. The league eats it up. Thoroughly entertained by the product, the league clamors for more victory videos in the event that the butt chin wins their game.
Well, Drew, I'm going to be honest with you, it was a little bit demoralizing, but knowing your video editing skills and your passion and competitiveness to win, I simply just took it. You got to have a game plan, you got to execute. I just didn't execute that week, and it cost me my morale a little bit.
After his next victory against Sam's foggy sunglasses, the second video drops, just as well received as the first. The season trods along, and the victory videos continue. The promise of more videos extends to the postseason, where the butt chin, Ben Spaeth's Creams Cheese, Doran McCormick's Glen Cove Golden Tide, and Sam DeCoste's Foggy Sunglasses meet in the winner's bracket for the league's ultimate bragging rights. Sam's Foggy Sunglasses end up taking the championship, defeating Ben Spaeth's Creams Cheese by the high score of 169.4 to 133.62. Still, lingering doubt about Sam's victory remain.
Do you think Sam cheated or colluded to win the league
100%.
championship?
100%. He had
100%.
to. He's the commissioner. I mean, he definitely gave himself some points here and there that he definitely didn't deserve.
I think Sam wants to do what's best for him and wants to do what's best for his own private interests.
Just a horrible commissioner. Possibly worse than Roger Goodell. Possibly.
Nevertheless, no charges are levied or pressed against Sam, and his victory goes undisputed. In the league's first year, Commissioner DeCoste is the Witching Hour Fantasy League champion. Supposedly. A year passes, the offseason comes and goes, and Sam decides to renew the league for its second season after a successful and competitive first season. Leon Wenhow's departure, along with Commissioner DeCoste's desire to expand the league to 10 teams, brings 3 hopeful new fantasy managers to the Witching Hour: Benny Forstat, Owen McWhorter, and Nick Rocca.
I was excited because I'd never done fantasy football before and I didn't really know at all how it works. And I was also nervous because everyone seemed like they kind of knew what they were doing besides me, and I kept on asking like literally everybody for advice on how the fuck you would do this thing.
Do you still think that everybody knows what they're doing?
No, no one knows what they're doing. Absolutely nobody is what I learned.
I don't know like stats and that sort of thing, and so it was really cool to just be like in a group like with a bunch of people, and be able to like follow like the games and have like that kind of interactive experience like in real life, you know what I mean?
The season doesn't even start before controversy arises. Commissioner DeCoste, left at a crossroads with the expansion of the league, is forced into a decision regarding the league's draft order. He makes an objectively wrong choice. Sam decides to completely randomize the draft order, invalidating the tanking efforts of teams like Jackson Stuckey's baby linebackers and Team Manning.
Jackson Stuckey. Originally, you were slated to pick first overall in the Witching Hour's 2021 draft. Instead, you picked fifth due to Sam's decision to randomize the draft order. Does that upset you at all?
It did at first, and then I realized that it's a fucking bullshit fantasy football league.
It did get me a little ticked off to begin with, but Sam's been walking around with an apple above his head for a while, so it's about time that someone calls him out on it. So
It's a new era in the Witching Hour, and we have 3 new players. 1 left last year, so I figured that if I designed it so I had the players all drafted at the beginning or the end of the draft, it wouldn't be fair. And no matter what I decide as commissioner, no matter what I do, no matter how I breathe, no matter how I dress, no matter if I wear socks a bit or not, everyone's going to criticize whatever I do because the spotlight's on me and nobody else. And I won the league, so everyone's always going to come after me. I don't believe in tanking. We randomized the draft order this year, and I'll do it again. Watch, you want to see me do it again? I will.
Despite the controversy, the biggest surprise from the draft comes in the form of Doran McCormick's head-scratching decisions made throughout the selections. Tyler Lockett, widely considered a 4th or 5th round pick, is taken with his 19th overall pick in the 2nd round. Despite selecting George Kittle with his 3rd pick, he selects Rob Gronkowski, another tight end, with his 10th round pick. He takes a 3rd tight end, Austin Hooper, in the 14th round.
I didn't know what he was thinking when he was drafting. I mean, it's like a car crash. Like you can't, it's bad, but you can't take your eyes away from it. It's like watching Doran draft.
When I drafted those players, I was like, look, Lockett did well for me last season, and you know what? I was like, I just felt Lockett. I don't know. The aura was around the building. It was just like I should draft Tyler Lockett like right now. It's kind of like it's kind of like Jesus came down and said, put his hand on my shoulder and said, Doran McCormick, Glen Cove Golden Tide, draft Tyler Lockett. It's going to give you good luck for the season.
Right away, it's clear to see that this season won't be like the last. Jackson Stuckey's baby linebackers, the laughingstock of the league last year, surged to a 5-2 start to the season, including a 180-point showing in a nuclear victory against the reigning league champion Fog Champs. It's almost the opposite for Benny Forstat. After a scorching 2-0 start that season drop a combined 300 fantasy points, his stellar Witching League debut was cut short in what becomes a 1-9 stretch from week 3 to week 13. Naturally, after all the comments about Doran's draft, Doran goes on an insane stretch to become the clear best team in the league, at least in terms of record. Thanks to a dominant run from Derrick Henry and surprise contributions from Tom Brady and Cooper Kupp, Doran sprints out to a 9-3 record.
Listen, all I'm saying is that say what you want about my draft order. It shouldn't be about my draft order. It should be about how my team is doing. Y'all give me a lot of shit on draft night. But you know what, man? You know what? I'm first seed, and the lowest I can go is second seed. I'm getting the first round bye.
Along with the new developments on the fantasy side, the content begins to pick up in tandem. Benny begins releasing weekly power rankings, which aren't at all biased and are 100% fair and accurate. They also include a disturbing amount of F-bombs. Ben and Toby crank out weekly predictions before the games, despite how regularly wrong they are.
I think Dorn was a little too focused during the draft on pissing me off and taking my players than taking the best he could, so I think Cameron's gonna have the better rounded out team this week.
Suddenly, there's no shortage of content in the witching hour. As the league hurtles towards its second playoffs, the stakes and ridicule have never been higher. For all the shenanigans and trolling that takes place, the league's participants don't forget that they're all buddies at the end of the day. In a way, the added layer of humor to the league only reinforces that notion. The Witching Hour Fantasy Football League has grown to embody so much more than a bunch of dudes sitting around and watching football for bragging rights.
The trash talk is great. I love the videos that Drew makes of the power rankings that Benny made before he decided to jump off a cliff for his fantasy season.
The league, to me, is very special because you know what's very special? Because there's $0 down from every person. And it's the only league I've ever been in where there's no money down and everyone is so intensely into it. And I think that's special. I think that shows how tight like all of us are, or how we all like mesh and vibe well together.
The elements that we bring to this league make it feel like an actual NFL season. Like the power rankings, like Toby and Ben's pregame videos about like the big matchups of the week. It really brings an element like we're in our own NFL season. You know what I mean?
Nothing.
Just not
But
even
I mean,
right.
well, I would say it means a little more than nothing. It means something. If I didn't win the league, that was a pretty big achievement. Although I didn't get anything out of it. Like no one gave me any money. No one gave me a trophy. No one, said congratulations. No one said, "Hey Sam, good job."
Do you think that could be a result of people deeming your championship, quote unquote, Mickey Mouse?
My championship there's nothing Mickey Mouse about it. Nothing Mickey Mouse about my champion. Nothing Mickey Mouse about my fantasy championship. I earned that. I drafted a good team.
It's more than a league, at least until I win the championship and everyone claims that it wasn't legit. Then it's war.